It's no surprise that glass is an important part of our daily lives. Windows in our house protect us from the winds, rains, and animals. And in the mornings we have a glass of milk, and in the evening a glass of wine. We even put flowers in vases, and our cars have windshields that keep the bugs and other elements out. I'm Madison Zelenski, currently an art student at Cuesta College in San Luis Obispo. It may be surprising to know that glass is one of the most creative mediums used in art today. We will get into a brief history in a bit, but today I want to focus on the process called casting glass. It is what makes many pieces of glass art so intriguing. Let's take a look. Shaping hot molten glass into useful articles has long been a challenge. Molten glass is extremely hot, caustic, sticky, and difficult to handle. In the period extending from about 2000 BCE to 50 BCE, there were three basic methods used to form glass. One of the earliest and most widely used was core forming. This involved distributing molten glass around a clay core on a metal rod. The rod with the clay core could either be dipped into molten glass, or the hot liquid glass could simply be poured over it. The outer glass coating was then rolled on a flat stone surface to smooth it. Natural glass. Probably as early as 75,000 BCE, long before human beings had learned how to make glass, they had used natural glass to fashion knives, arrowheads, and other useful articles. The most common natural glass is obsidian, formed when the heat of volcanoes melts rocks such as granite, which then become glassy upon cooling. A second method involves sagging and fusing. It was called this for taking glass rods or canes, which were often different colors, placing them in or on top of a mold, and heating the canes until they sagged and fused together and conformed to the shape of the mold. The third method was casting, which called for pouring hot, molten glass into a mold. All three of these methods were slow, and they generally produced small items that were rather thick. Glass pieces tend to be quite expensive and were affordable only to the very wealthy. It was probably in the Middle East during the 1st century BCE that the important technique of glassblowing was discovered. A hollow metal rod or pipe was used to pick up a glob of molten glass. If the bubble were blown into a mold, the molten glass could be given a desired shape. Cast glass is made by pouring molten or liquid glass into a mold to form a particular shape before it is cooled and released. Cast glass is one of the oldest methods in glass history, with early vessels dating back to Egypt and Mesopotamia as early as the 15th century BC. The method of casting glass is typically used today mostly by artisans for ornamental and design-specific purposes. In 1962, the studio glass movement was born in a garage on the museum grounds. Harvey Littleson, a pottery instructor, received the support of then-director Otto Whitman to construct a workshop to explore ways artists might create works from molten glass in their own studios. Originally an American phenomenon, the studio glass movement spread quickly to Europe and the United Kingdom, Australia, and more recently Asia. David Ruth, Oakland and Seattle-based glass sculptor, has been making large-scale cast glass sculptures for over 20 years. Often featuring bright colors and contrasting polished surfaces with rough textures, the work has been featured in architecture, including Tokyo Disneysea in Japan, and shown in galleries around the world. In 2008, Ruth completed several notable public artworks, including the Levuka Fountain in Santa Ana, California. David Ruth has developed a wide range of aesthetic techniques and applications to the language of sculpture and architecture. Preparing the cast. This step is the most time-consuming of all steps. Here, the detail of surface texture, angles, and other components are prepared prior to pouring molten glass. Pouring the molten glass into the cast. Sending smaller pieces of glass through the rollers. Grinding the glass to remove rough edges. This process is done by hand. Polishing is done with diamond grinders, either flat or by hand. The size of the tool depends on the area to be ground and polished. To caro a fountain. The look of ice comes from the fusing of borosilicate glasses like Pyrex. The Takara fountain reminds me of SeaWorld's Animals of the Arctic exhibit. The surface texture of the glass fountain looks cold and smooth, just like the ice walls inside of SeaWorld's exhibit. I really like this piece by David Ruth because it reminds me of one of my favorite places to be in the whole world. Tonga Batu is made of 22 fused and polished panels that were created for a theme park near Tokyo, Japan in 2001. The theme is underwater, moving from the tropics to temperate waters. Many of the pieces are 3.5 feet wide by about 7 feet tall and 1 3/4 inches thick. They are polished on the front and sides, but textured on the back. Parts were separately made and embedded in the matrix of molten glass. Smaller pieces were placed in the kiln and fused at about 800 degrees Celsius. The polishing process finished the pieces before installation. The depth of the glass allows for a dimension between the elements, mimicking the feels of the water. Tonga Batu reminds me of the time I went snorkeling in Hawaii. I had never seen such intense natural color like that before. Something like that really takes your breath away, as does this piece of art by David Ruth. He has completely captured the feel of the ocean that is rarely seen by the public. Through this piece, he has allowed normal, everyday people to experience that breathtaking feeling as they walk by. It is a beautiful piece that is so captivating to every kind of viewer. If you are a person like me that learns by seeing and doing, then casting glass might be for you. A few years ago, I took an interest in welding, making three-dimensional objects out of iron. Now, my vision is to combine welding and casting glass to express the way I see the world. Thanks for watching.